messing with some raw dudes, wrestling, talking, raw views, previews, recaps, and interviews. Definition of professional, tell me what you expected though. Facts are checked when information's collected, yo. We body slamming all these wrestling brands, but of course that's the case when A&T's on hand. We going head to head, this ain't a ratings war. Now's your chance to chat with Steven, what you waiting for?
And my guest for today, she is a host from a Wrestling Gals podcast, Ella J. Ella, how you doing today?
Hey, Steven, I'm fantastic today. How are you?
Doing well. Is it okay if I call you Ella, or do you prefer Ella J?
I prefer Ella. Ella J is fine, though.
No problem. So I'm from the South, so it is very common to have like the hyphenated name thing around here, like Sally Mae, Emma Lynn, those kind of things. Where you're from, New York, right?
Yes, upstate New York, specifically Buffalo. So way other side of New York, 7 hours away from New York City.
So are you a Bills fan then?
I am not the biggest Bills fan. I'm just not really into football, but I'm all about supporting Bills Mafia, though. But yeah.
Oh man, come on! So, I'm a Dolphins fan, so we're gonna have to cut this short, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. No, how's the weather like upstate? So I live in North Carolina. It is currently approximately gorgeous and perfect outside.
Yeah, I think it's about 50 today, and it's slowly becoming more like spring and not snowing. So I love like about 50-degree weather. So it's gorgeous, it's sunny, and it's not snowing. So
are you currently at the stage where you feel like you can open up your windows because you need the fresh air in your house because it's so stuffy from the winter?
Honestly, I prefer the cold anyway, so I open my windows up a lot anyways, even during the winter.
Hey, I'm a guy who likes the cold as well. My wife, on the other hand, not so much. So we're here today to talk about Monday Night Raw, and let me ask you, I'm actually a fan of Raw Weekly. I enjoy the fact that they try to tell, generally speaking, a story throughout the course of a night. Not many other wrestling shows try to do that. Most other wrestling shows, it's very segmented, very Saturday Night Live-esque as far as the TV show goes. What are your thoughts, especially, let's talk about 2021 Monday Night Raw. How have you felt about the show this year so far?
It's sad, though, because I never get to catch them live because I normally work Monday nights almost always. But watching it back, I realized that they do have recurring storylines like throughout the night. Like you will see multiple people coming out, and they're very fluid with that, especially with like Orton and Bray. That is something we see throughout the night. Even with AJ Styles was talking about it last night, talking about Orton, and then they brought it about later in the night. So they definitely plug multiple storylines like 2 or 3 times throughout the night for certain ones, which I thoroughly enjoy because it's reminding the people that like, oh, you should be thinking about this. This is something you should be paying attention to.
Well, it's to me, Monday Night Raw is probably the only wrestling show that is actually most aligned to a actual television drama show.
Yeah.
You turn it on, you have these highlights of the night, and then you typically have a major overarching story. My wife and I just finished Private Practice. Have you ever seen that show?
I have not.
Okay, so it's a medical drama. I don't know if that's something you're into, but essentially, it's just like every other drama television show. You have minor stories underneath, and then you have an overarching story for each episode. And I appreciate the fact Raw tries to do that. Last night felt really different from previous weeks because you've had the WWE title be such a overarching story with The Miz trying to find ways to keep it or run away with it, however. And then last night it felt like you had a story for the first half of the show, a story in the middle of the show, and then a story for the back half of the show.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. Which of the 3 stories? So we have Braun Shane. I'm going to let you choose because you're the guest. Braun Shane, Lashley, Miz, Orton, Alexa, Wyatt. What do you want to kick off with?
I have to choose The Miz and Bobby Lashley because that's the one I'm most passionate about.
So go ahead. Well, go ahead and tell us why are you enjoying it so much? Because I very much am enjoying it as well.
I am enjoying it. I am a Miz fan though, so I will say though that I I'm very happy for Bobby Lashley. I'm just sad that Miz kind of had to be the transitional champ in this situation after 10 years of busting his ass to finally reclaim it. That's my only. I love that he was champ, and I love that Bobby Lashley is champ because he absolutely deserves it. It's just really unfortunate for me that the Miz somehow had to be the filler champion in between, and now they made him look really, really weak again last night, kind of losing his credibility. When I know what Miz is perfectly capable of, like he said in his promo, he is the go-to guy for media, for movies, for photos, for like all of that stuff. He has been their most must-see superstar, I think, in terms of media, and he's an all-arounder. So I'm very happy for Bobby Lashley. I think this last night kind of closes the chapter. Now we'll see Miz and John probably part their ways and go to Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. And then we will see the path that Bobby Lashley now is going to take with the Hurt Business and the WWE Championship.
Sure, and let's touch on the Miz real quick because people who have followed me on Twitter for years or who know me personally know the Miz is my favorite current WWE superstar, and he is actually his promo when he won the United States Championship, where he's walking through the backstage area and kind of recapping, kind of chronicling his journey through WWE, and then coming out and saying, I'd rather you hate me for everything I am than to love me for something I'm not. That was the first promo that drew me back to wrestling. I had gone on a long hiatus, my college years, of not really watching wrestling at the time. And to come back and to see him, I am very distraught that they made him defend the title twice with cramps last week. So the fact that they made him do that is absolutely repulsive.
I know, and like the Miz, I think the Miz is definitely like within my top favorite people on just in WWE in general. He's grown, he's shot up my list so far in the last like 5 years. It's insane. And so when he won, I was honestly crying at Elimination Chamber. And then I was like, just give him 2 weeks. And then I was honestly shocked they didn't have him drop it the next day on Raw. So I was like, okay, we can breathe for a little bit. I'm like, please just give him like 2 weeks. No, they're like, nope, sorry, you're gonna lose the title after 8 days. And so as much as Bobby Lashley absolutely deserves it, I just wish Miz got a little more time. My expectations were low for his title run, but not that low.
Well, let me say this. There's no better person to put with Bad Bunny though, as far as promoting a WrestleMania match, because these two guys will go out and promote the hell out of it across so many different platforms. As a Miz fan, of course, I'd rather him have the title, but looking at it from a TV perspective, I actually like the fact they're going to put he and Bad Bunny together because I think it's going to make for really good TV.
I think so too. It's going to be absolutely entertaining, and plus, who better than two veterans, two guys who are perfectly capable of being comedic and putting other people over. So I totally agree. It just, I wish that the Mrs. Cash In again was worth more value. It felt like
I think we get one more.
Bank? Yeah,
I think we get one more run. By the way, I think we're going to get one more title run.
I hope so, but I really don't know.
I could see him going away and then coming back. He's kind of got that. I'm gonna say John Cena, and people are gonna say, "Oh my God, you have him." No, I don't have him that high. He's not John Cena, but you have the John Cena effect where you're tired of seeing the guy to the point where you don't really appreciate his abilities, and then when he's gone, you're like, "Holy shit, I miss how good he was on the microphone or whatever." And I think he could go away and come back, and people would really be excited about it. But let's go ahead. Let's talk Lashley. Let's talk that WWE Championship, the Hurt Business. We're going to lump Drew and Sheamus into this as well because they had another match of the night week candidate last night. Do you think we're headed, so let me ask you this. Do you think we're headed to Drew Bobby at Mania?
I think absolutely. That's what I've been hearing. And so it would make sense because Drew hasn't really gotten, not that they're owed rematches anymore because there's no rematch clauses, but Drew is kind of owed that rematch, and he's kind of shifted his focus a bit, so he has to come back to it. I think they're going to build up for that Mania match. Now, do I know who's going to win the title, whether it's going to Drew wins it back or Bobby retains? We will see, but I think they're eventually going to circle back to Drew and Bobby.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this then, because we have the draw last night. Sheamus has a victory over Drew. Drew has a victory over Sheamus from last week. We have the draw last night. We have Fastlane just a couple of weeks away, I believe, like 10, 12 days away, something like that. So do you think we're going to get Drew Sheamus at Fastlane? And if so, what do we do with Lashley? Because I don't think Miz is an option there.
They don't always have the champions on pay-per-views, right?
Sure.
I think obviously Sheamus and Drew McIntyre is very logical. Maybe it's a number one contender match and you have Bobby Lashley sitting at ringside.
Oh, that's an option.
I mean, that's very possible. You don't always need the WWE champion or whoever the main champion is on the show to be at a match at Fastlane or any pay-per-view, because sometimes you have the number one contender matches. So I don't think Bobby will necessarily have a match at Fastlane. I think they're going to take a step back and have that focus on Drew and Sheamus and then let that storyline conclude and then push forward with Drew and Bobby. Maybe Bobby and the Hurt Business will get involved and beat down both competitors. Maybe we could see that. We'll see. But I think they're going to focus on Drew and Sheamus.
That I actually don't hate that idea. The only thing that gives me hesitation about that, because I actually think it's a very logical idea, and when it comes to wrestling and predicting and stuff, logic tends to be my best friend. The fact they're debuting on Peacock is my only hesitation to them not having the WWE title defended on the show. But let me loft this up to you. AJ Styles is on a pretty tremendous winning streak. He also pinned Sheamus in the Elimination Chamber. I can't remember the last time he's lost a singles match. Do you think they do Lashley Styles at Fastlane?
Very possible, but in that dynamic, it'd be heel versus heel, which we don't see a lot of. I mean, we did see Coda and Raquel against Shayna and Nia, and those are both heel teams. But we
also just saw Miz Lashley.
True, that is very true.
Which I'm going to dig us down a rabbit hole I probably shouldn't do, but we're already halfway down the rabbit hole, so let's go ahead and let's go all the way down it. So if you did Lashley Styles after doing Lashley Miz, you're kind of, in a way, turning Lashley babyface. Well, you're not going to have babyface Lashley and babyface Drew at Mania.
So maybe Styles Lashley?
So my question is, because, again, it's Peacock. You want to do something big for this debut on Peacock, especially 2 weeks before Mania. Could we see Brock come back and do a triple threat with two baby faces versus Brock?
Oh, gosh. I hope not. That's just my personal opinion.
Sure.
I feel like the division has breathed so much air they can breathe since Brock is not clamoring to the main event scene where everybody else is like not even in focus. I think they've done a fantastic job of creating not even newer stars, just other people involved in the title picture over the last 3 years other than Brock. So, I mean, I could see them bringing him back. Obviously, he's a draw, and he's been one of their go-to guys over the last few years, but this is the first Mania in a while where Brock isn't involved, and I'm not mad about it. That's just me personally.
I love it. No. Look, you shouldn't be nervous about saying that at all. I think a lot of people feel that way. Anytime Brock comes on my screen, my adrenaline just goes through the roof when I see that dude. He's a once-in-a-generation talent. But I can understand it, because when you look back at last year, you ask yourself, would Randy Orton have had the performances he did if Brock was looming? Would Seth Rollins have had the performances he would have if Lesnar was looming? You bring up a very valid point there with when you have Lesnar looming over that division, that top tier division, does it artificially knock people down a peg because he takes so much of a spot? Look, you bring up a solid point there. We mentioned Styles, though. I've just mentioned Orton. Let's transition to Orton Fiend Alexa, if you don't mind.
Of course.
What is your take on this Alexa character, the black goo, the voodoo stuff? Because what I've found so far on my Twitter is people either love it and think it's the best part of every show, or people hate it and they just want it off their screens. Where do you stand?
See, I like it. And so I'm one person who Randy Orton was one of my main favorites for a while, but I've kind of fallen off the last few years. But I feel like lately I'm like, okay, I'm kind of coming back to Randy Orton. And I don't know if I guess he's kind of the face now. Is this like a face turn? I don't know. But I mean, I'm not mad about it. I like where this is going, but also he's been healed too when it comes to Edge. So I don't know. He's somewhere in between. Maybe he's a tweener right now. But I find
He did set the guy on fire.
That is true. but like Alexa and Bray are supposed to be the heels, right? And then you obviously feel bad for this guy. Well, at least I do, for this guy coughing up like black blood, or I don't know what is, black goo, black ink, whatever it is. And Alexa, I think this is just a new dynamic for her character, something we've never seen before. We've seen her as, like a devilish heel back with Buddy and Murphy, but now this is just elevating her to a whole new dramatic, dark, some other world level that we have never seen before, and I don't think we've seen in a long time in a women's wrestler. So I'm loving it personally, and it's always cool to think in the back of your mind, oh, when's Bray coming back? Randy Orton kind of set him on fire. What, is he coming back? Is it Bray's ghost? Is it Bray rising from the dead? Who knows? And so I feel like there has to be a payoff at some point, which I like the way that they're leading up to it, however it turns out,
No, I completely agree with you. I dig it as well. I think having a little bit of supernatural, spooky stuff in your TV show isn't a bad thing, especially when it's a wrestling show. I'll say this. I think Alexa has always been character-driven.
Yeah.
Her character has carried her to the accolades she has. I go back to, you remember when her and Bayley were feuding?
Yes.
There was a promo in ring where Bayley just looked lost and Alexa just looked like a ultra dominant heel. And I always go back to that as my reference point of that's when she really became like second level character work, and that's what she's doing here, and she's doing it masterfully. I'm intrigued by this whole thing. I, like you, am unsure where we stand with the heel face dynamic of all this, because while he did set a fiend on fire, you see it in horror movies all the time, right? Like, good guy tries to kill bad thing trying to destroy everything. So is that where we're at here? Let me ask you this, because we're getting these two at Mania in some form or fashion.
Oh, for sure.
What kind of match can we get to between these two to end it, to close the story? Because, I mean, we've already lit people on fire. Like, where can we go from there?
A casket match, maybe?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. Buried alive, casket.
Yeah.
WrestleMania is going to have fans in attendance. Tickets are on sale next week. I think if you haven't yet, you can actually register to do a pre-sale on their website. But with fans in attendance, I don't see them doing a cinematic match. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, that's a good point too, though. But also, when they had fans in attendance for Revolution, and then they pre-filmed Sting and Darby, that whole match. Yeah. They pre-filmed that, then they had fans in attendance. So I don't know. It is 2 nights, though. It wouldn't hurt to have one match pre-filmed, because it gives everybody a chance to breathe, kind of. Yeah. I don't know.
I could totally see that. My only hesitation is roughly 30,000 people who bought a ticket.
True.
I don't know if they're going to be wanting to watch a screen for 15-20 minutes, and maybe they will, or maybe you do it blended, right, where you start in a cinematic universe and then you end the match in the ring, or you start the match in the ring and then you end it in the cinematic way.
I think they have to have one match that's cinematic or somewhat, especially for a 2-night event.
Well, this would be it. Yeah. I mean, you're 100% right there. This would be it. Let's go ahead and let's jump over to Shane and Braun. I don't mind seeing Shane McMahon on the TV. I generally like it when Braun Strowman is just the dude who walks around and tears stuff up. I had zero interest in this last night, and I don't think it was done very well. I guess the story they're trying to tell is Shane's the smart rich guy and Braun's the big dumb dude. Go ahead, take this over, because I'm just going to keep stumbling down a rabbit hole like I'm Shane McMahon.
Like you said, I like Shane as well, but main takeaways, all I could focus on was Shane breathing really heavily and taking long pauses. That's all I could focus on when I was watching it. And he just kept saying, "Oh, I'm not calling you stupid," and then all of that for like that was a good 5-10 minutes, all
Easy,
to get
easily.
around to saying that Braun was stupid. They took the roundabout ways. I saw my timeline when I got home. Everybody was saying this is awkward. I'm like, then I watched it. I'm like, oh yeah, I see what you guys are talking about. My main takeaways was Shane breathing really heavily. Like,
Yeah,
Shane, I like you. I'm just confused.
yeah. I don't know who needs to tell him not to breathe from his nose directly into the microphone. He sounded like he was out of breath the whole time, but
Yeah.
he really wasn't. It was just him breathing, but
Yeah.
directly into the microphone.
Mhm.
Let's just bypass all that because it just wasn't good last night.
No.
The Shane and Braun excite you for WrestleMania?
Not really, to be honest.
Sure.
I'm not the biggest fan of Braun, but I think if it gives Braun a new person to feud with who he's never really stepped forward with before, I don't believe. And I mean, it gives Shane another reason to go balls out for everything, because all his opponents, I think excluding The Miz, I think excluding The Miz in the last few years have been like bigger opponents. Like we had Undertaker the one year. I forget
AJ
who else.
Styles.
Yeah.
AJ Styles was part of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so,
and look,
yeah.
The Miz is a former two-time WWE champion who's main evented WrestleMania. That's a big name too, but you're right. This gives Braun a big name to feud with. I kind of worry about Shane's health because I feel like Shane's going to be like, hey, throw me off the pirate ship.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then Braun's going to be like, big guy, strong throw. And I don't know. I have minimal interest at this point. Generally speaking, though, a Shane McMahon WrestleMania match doesn't disappoint.
There's definitely going to be some stipulation too, because there's almost always some crazy stipulation because it's Shane. So I don't know what they're going to come up with. I don't think it'll be a clean match, especially Shane, who likes to throw himself off of stuff and then leap across the ring. I don't think it's going to be like just a regular match. So
no, that wouldn't benefit either guy.
No.
Because Braun's not exactly a technician either. We want the draw to Braun has always been go destroy stuff. We like seeing that. But yeah, that's always been the draw for Braun. Let's move on. Let's touch on the ladies. The Raw women's division has been a bit of a mess. You had the Lacey. I think once Lacey got removed because they had a clear story there.
Yeah, and
right?
Lacey was supposed to be champ apparently.
Well, yeah, and you could kind of see that coming, right? Like Rick was saying he's grooming her to be the champion. She's going for the title. You had the feud with Charlotte built in. I was a fan of that. Were you? Did you enjoy the Lacey, Charlotte, Rick stuff?
Not really, to be honest. And I'm such a Charlotte fan, and I just it felt kind of redundant with the whole Tori Wilson and her dad thing from back in the day. Not to the same caliber.
Yeah.
Obviously, but I was like, this is kind of forced, and I don't really want to see it. That was just me, though.
No, it's fine. I enjoy a story, right? So I could see a scenario where Charlotte is clearly the top of the division.
Yeah.
Lacey sees an opportunity to attack a weakness, being Charlotte's father, attach herself to him. That should theoretically bring Charlotte down a bit because now she's not thinking completely clear.
And that made sense because Charlotte, you saw her losing a bit and Lacey got into her head. So at least there was a constant women's storyline going on. I will give them that.
But now we have Asuka who's out. She got her tooth knocked out. She got I think she was diagnosed with a minor concussion. I'm unsure about that completely though. And we're not blaming Shayna here. There's no Shayna slander on this show. But you have Shayna, you have Nia, you have Mandy Rose and Dana and Charlotte and Peyton Royce last night, all now gunning for the champion. Where do you think this all leads?
Rhea Ripley. I'm really I think Peyton and Asuka would be very compelling, but I don't see them going for that for Mania. Obviously, maybe it'll be another like 6-pack challenge. But I thought Rhea Ripley was supposed to debut like 2 weeks ago or like shortly after the Rumble, and then they keep adding on packages like coming soon or something. So go ahead.
When it comes, I have a little bit of an answer there for you. When it comes to Rhea Ripley, they had teetered back and forth on whether to put her on SmackDown or Raw, because on a Raw they had the Charlotte storyline set with Lacey. So the belief was she was going to go to SmackDown and feud with Bayley. Lacey gets pulled. You have a massive hole there you need to fill. Well, Rhea Ripley is a massive potential star who can fill that hole. So that I think that's why we kind of have the weird post Rumble Ripley stuff.
Yeah, I think that she has the capabilities to fill that hole as long as creative books her properly.
So let me ask you this then. You have Rhea and Asuka then. What do you do with Charlotte? Because Charlotte's not missing Mania.
Yeah.
So what do you do with her there?
See, I really want this kind of not rebuild, but like, what's the word? Not grudge match, but like something with going back to revisiting Rhea and Charlotte, so get her revenge on Charlotte. And I think it would be a perfect way to turn Rhea heel and then have heel Rhea back for maybe WrestleMania against Asuka or even a triple threat. I don't know. Oh, that's a good question.
Both Asuka and Ripley have Charlotte demons.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Both have lost to Charlotte. So you could make an interesting story between Charlotte, Ripley, and Asuka, where you have the two people trying to exercise their demons over Charlotte, but also having to face each other. I think a triple threat there would make a lot of sense, but you also had Ripley eliminate Alexa during the Rumble. So I don't know if they revisit that. You know, could we get Orton bringing Ripley in, and what like think of an on-screen pairing of Orton and Ripley. Like, I'm not sure that you could have built two better looking superstars in WWE than those two. I don't know. The women's division to me is the hardest thing to gauge. The only thing I know is Charlotte's going to be featured at Mania.
Oh, so for sure.
That's the end point of the line. We're back here. How do we draw that straight line? And that's where I'm having issues, because you do have the introduction of Ripley.
And I mean, you would think that Ripley would definitely debut before Mania, right? Because they say like soon. So I would think it would have to be at Fastlane or the night after Fastlane. Definitely before Mania. I like that. Go ahead.
No, so you finish. You like the what?
I was going to say, I like that story idea, though, between Orton and Ripley, because I've said before in past episodes of mine that Orton needs to have a counterpart to his, especially if Alexa and Bray are teaming up. Orton needs to have somebody who can kind of go against Alexa, too. So I think Ripley and Orton could be the perfect face team in that dynamic to combat Ray or Alexa and Bray. Yeah. Huh. But I don't know, like you said, how do they get there? There's no linear path. You need to come up with something.
Yeah, I'm unsure how you get there unless you just have, Alexa in the ring with Orton, and Orton says, "I got something for you," and out comes badass Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
But then at that point, does badass Ripley trump scary girl? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you can insert her in there cleanly. Not to say it can't be done. I just have a harder time there. I do like your 6-pack challenge idea. Maybe they do that at Fastlane to create the number one contender. You have Charlotte. You have Charlotte standing tall, and then out walks Ripley. Ripley beats Charlotte, but Charlotte says she won the match. Ripley wasn't officially in the match, kind of thing. And then that gets us to the triple threat at Mania.
I honestly think Ripley is gonna either not debut, but debut on the main roster at Fastlane or the night after on Raw. Yeah, I think it has to be.
And if you think about it, the Peacock show is going to want those major moments.
Yeah.
That's a good surprise for fans, is, popping out Rhea Ripley and boom. Let me ask you, Ella, is there anything else from the show last night you want to touch on, or any, we got a few more minutes here. Anything in wrestling you want to touch on real quick?
What the heck are they doing with those women's tag team championships?
I
That's
don't
what
know.
I want to know.
Um,
Because Lana and Naomi literally won a number one contender slot like it was after Rumble, early February, and they have done really nothing with them virtually. They've had other people inserted into matches. So I don't know what the point of having that match was if they aren't going to really focus on them.
well,
It just yeah.
they did get the title. They did get the match last
Yeah.
night.
Finally, but
With Reginald getting involved.
yeah.
But then you have the indecisive victory from Raquel and Dakota.
Mhm.
You have Bailey right now, who has no path to Mania, and I can't foresee her not being on the Mania card. Do you put Baymella back to? I think what ends up happening with these tag titles is you end up getting a multi-woman tag match.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Which I don't hate, I don't love, because I feel like you could do so much more with these titles. They should be traveling around more. I actually proposed on my Twitter account that they should be. What they should do is create a women's show and have those tag titles live on the women's show, and make it where any women's champion can come on that show and defend their title against anybody else.
Ooh, I like that.
Make it an open show for these ladies. I would even love to see a blend of Total Divas, just to give that personality. My wife, not a wrestling fan, started watching Total Divas. And really, like Naomi, like we went to WrestleMania together, and she bought her merch because she seems like a really awesome person on TV. I would love to see a blend of Total Divas where these ladies really get to show their personalities, because the reason they have so many Instagram followers and TikTok followers and Twitter followers is because they get to see that personality, and it's infectious.
I absolutely agree, and I love that idea. I don't know how they'd go about it, whether it be live or it'd probably have to be pre-taped at NXT or Raw or SmackDown.
Sure.
But I'm all for creating an all-women show, because it gives people an opportunity to actually have time and have the focus be directly on them. And then they can, I think, constantly build and figure something out logically for their storylines, because sometimes it's just, can we swear in here, by the way, or not?
Yeah, go for it.
Honestly, sometimes it's a clusterfuck and you don't know what's going on. Nothing makes sense. And so I think that is an absolute fantastic idea. Whether they actually implement it is another thing, but I think that would be a start for them.
And before we go today, let me ask you this. NXT tomorrow night, 2 game-changing announcements. That is the verbiage being used. I'm not going to go there with AEW. That's the verbiage being used, game-changing announcements. What do you think they are?
They were teasing NXT women's tag team titles. That might be one of them.
Okay.
And then the other, maybe it's about their move to Tuesdays, or I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what the other one could be. Maybe we see Walter in NXT. I don't know.
Well, that would be game changing, because that dude, that's the final boss of every video game ever created in the world. I had a blast today, Ella. Tell them where they can find you, where they can listen to you, because you're such a fantastic person.
Well, thank you. You can listen to a Wrestling Gal podcast basically anywhere you find your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, etc. Or you can go to wrestlinggal.com for all my Twitter, Instagram links, and merch there as well, and patreon.com/wrestlinggal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I hope to have you back. And we're going to go ahead and